Hello.
About 10 years after the Jedi Purge and supposed final duel with his fallen apprentice, Obi-Wan would undoubtedly have some mental baggage to live with. Isolation in a remote and rather lifeless part of the galaxy would give him ample time to reflect on his past, with the image of Luke, the son of his fallen apprentice, there to constantly remind him. Regret would creep in, and Ben would think back to moments when he saw signs of Anakin's dark path early on, wondering if he'd done things differently he could have prevented a monster from rising up from within his friend. Kenobi would blame himself for the fact that his teaching wasn't good enough, shooting him into a downward spiral with no chance for
another happy landing.
On top of that, during the span of the Clone Wars, Kenobi lost many friends, his love interest, his allies, and maybe even his way. And without Mando around to guide him, Ben would be so lost and overwhelmed with his past that the only person he could turn to would be Master Qui-Gon, as set up beautifully in Revenge of the Sith. Kenobi would spend his time overcoming feelings of failure and PTSD by strengthening his bond with the Force, preparing him on his path to immortality. During this time, Qui-Gon would reassure him that things are still in motion, and that Anakin is still in fact the chosen one, the one who will bring balance. The show would have been super emotional every episode, packed with familiar musical themes, and lending itself to cameos and flashbacks that would have legitimately benefited the story. It could have been perfect. Without bouncy lightsabers and slap attacks, without most of the time spent chasing Leia, Vader's sudden fear of fire, invisibility coats, or Bail being stupid for the sake of plot. And certainly, the bestest and most relatable character ever would still be alive and well. Wade. This version of Kenobi's mental adventures would bring the waterworks and put Kamino to shame. Disney would have enough money to not only buy China, but put joy in the hearts of Obi-Wan fans for eternity. Kenobi would have been the show that we all watch on repeat, the show that blew Mandalorian out of the water with unbeatable quality and tightly knit storytelling. Obi-Wan Kenobi had all the pieces to make a truly legendary show. So how come for many, it felt like such a mixed bag?
What's this?
The Polynesian spa.
With a show about two of the most important characters in the galaxy, their story, even though we know the eventual outcome, had the potential to be absolutely top-tier Star Wars. We could have done a deep dive into Kenobi's thoughts, an essential tool to his current character. He'd have to combat and overcome them, finally ascending to the state of allogennousness that we got in A New Hope. But unfortunately, when there's more media to produce and thus more minds working on any given project, they lose the consistency that a single mind at the helm provides. Naturally, this creates a shift in tone, vision, and creative choices, sometimes leaving behind vitally important things that should have come along from the very beginning. Paired with the fact that the studio hired a writer who has never in fact seen Revenge of the Sith, or more accurately, a guy who is such a casual fan that he needs to constantly consult about basic elements within canon, things were not as shipshape as they could have been. Teased in the trailers, it was clear that this is going to be a story centering around Obi-Wan and his fallen apprentice, now Darth Vader. It hinted at Ben's current life while not giving us too much else, even going so far as to play music from Revenge of the Sith to tie things in nicely. Too bad they didn't use John Williams' iconic music more often, or even really at all. But, you know, Disney probably wants to be considerate of deaf people, I suppose. Keeping the use of familiar music in mind, flashbacks would have been a logical thing to incorporate, especially if these two characters remained apart for the majority of the show. As any good writer would know, if you want a plot point or a bit of dialogue to really matter to the present, you need to provide something beforehand called context. The first episode did this wonderfully by giving us a recap that was akin to countless beautiful YouTube edits fans have done, really hitting home the fact that the show was going to be about a Jedi dealing with the events of his past. This recollection idea was a thread that was not utilized to its full potential. This is Ben's rich history, his highest and lowest points in life, and it should have been constantly active within him as he went about his day doing boring everyday tasks. Like, come on, you can't look at a shot like this and say he isn't thinking about a Clone Wars mission or something.
They go down to the bottom, they get a stone, and they go down to the bottom, they get a seashell.
Master, you're alive.
They're beautiful.
What are you doing down there?
We're looking at sea otters.
You're not serious.
6 of them here.
Recollections of his history, mainly about training Anakin, should dominate his mind, especially if he blames himself for creating Darth Vader. Mixed in with him going to work or watching Luke, this would have been a great opportunity to insert happy flashbacks. Kenobi could think of his happy memories with Anakin by day, contrasting the night when they become uncontrollable nightmares.
Waking up in the morning, thinking about so many things.
Regardless of what people say about pandering or nostalgia, memories from the Clone Wars would legitimately serve the story well here, giving us live-action events that were previously animated while also enhancing the fact that Kenobi and Skywalker were really close. They could also explore Kenobi's conversations with Captain Rex or Ahsoka regarding Anakin's aggression or something like that, pushing the idea that Ben thinks about all the red flags he didn't deal with at the time, increasing his current guilt. Taking this in the direction of the 5th episode, the flashbacks that arc over the entire show could relate directly to the present, getting Kenobi into certain mindsets as he analyzes where he went wrong with his teachings. Forget spending 4 episodes chasing a kid with legs that can outstride an adult.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
The real challenge for Kenobi would be battling his inner regrets while knowing there's nothing he can do to change them. Consistent flashbacks would really give gravitas to Ben's mental state. The bad dreams need to pose a continuous reality for this war veteran. The show is called Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's a shame that he doesn't truly feel like the main character who we use as a lens to perceive the world through. I know that Disney wants to keep their stuff family-friendly, whatever that means, but a story like this needs certain core elements to function properly. Flashbacks and haunting recollections would really get us inside his head. They'd also give casual viewers a reason to become emotionally invested, and pull at the heartstrings of bigger fans, especially if they use music from Revenge of the Sith and the Clone Wars. But I guess from a marketing point of view, a Lola robot sells far better than a jar of regret and misery, so I can understand where they're coming from, I suppose. Oh, I kinda want to buy one of these. While the show did explore flashbacks a little bit, if they really did a deep dive with them, they could have really changed a lot of things and enhanced the current. Especially if they were used more often as opposed to once in a blue milk, then the show would have been one step closer to becoming truly incredible.
Why do I sense we've picked up another pathetic life form?
Don't say that, Master.
A hero is only as good as a villain that opposes them. And what better villain to oppose Kenobi, a man who fought countless wars with a brother-like figure that eventually turned on him, than a child from the Jedi Temple. Yes, after all Ben's pain and regret and past mistakes, his major threat isn't a ghost from a decade ago, but a kid he's never even met before.
Oh, you laugh, it's funny.
The choice to write Reva with far more screen time than Darth Vader in a Kenobi show was the second biggest waste of potential. Vader is clearly the superior choice for an antagonist here, and I honestly wonder what the creative thoughts were that led to this outcome. But before I dive into how Vader could have enhanced the show, let me first take a stab at enhancing Reva. And don't worry, when I take a stab, I'm sure she'll be fine. She survived the Chosen One twice, so some Canadian dude like myself has no chance of actually killing her, right? Ugh, poor Qui-Gon. With a character like Reva, I definitely think that less would have been more here. From watching the trailers, the way they framed it felt like she was part of the Grand Inquisitor's entourage. One of the secondary Inquisitors to have the most focus on her, sure, but certainly nobody expected Reva to temporarily kill the Grand Inquisitor, get handed his status for plot reasons, and tell Kenobi about Anakin on the side.
Anakin Skywalker is alive.
Why did you say that name?
It's his brothers. It's his brothers.
After 10 years of the galaxy being under Empire control, I'm certain Ben would have heard someone mention the name Darth Vader. While it was interesting to see his raw and well-acted reaction to the news, the show didn't really do much with it beyond serving Reva's story, which is connected to Ben's by a mere thread. Even with some rewrites, there isn't a way to keep Reva's backstory and give her a truly antagonistic role to oppose Kenobi. Even with Darth Vader being her real antagonist in the end, she still feels disjointed from it all, and would have truly shined if she had a parallel story going on where the Grand Inquisitor was her main foil instead. I commented this before episode 5 dropped and totally called the Vader revenge plot. But beyond the sick win that absolutely everyone saw and praised, I mentioned Trilla, the second sister and antagonist in the game Jedi Fallen Order, one of my personal favorite games. The theory here was that she and Reva knew each other before the Purge, with Trilla being older by several years but very much still an influence on Reva's life, like an older sister figure. Reva would learn about Trilla becoming an Inquisitor after she was forced into that position herself, hence the name second and third sister.
Bye, have a great time.
Expanding on this idea, when Trilla's life is ended by Vader's blade, this could act as a turning point for Reva. Maybe the pair of them gradually accepted the Inquisitor life and even enjoyed it, but Trilla's execution changed Reva's perception and now she desperately wants out. Maybe she even has a crisis where she realizes that deep down she doesn't like doing this and was only doing it because Trilla went along with it. Looking at her character in this different way, the Grand Inquisitor would be a more fitting antagonist for her. The GI, being her commanding officer, would push her to do things even though she didn't want to, enforcing the fact that Reva isn't a true villain at heart. This reworked Reva would be less aggressive and more afraid, benefiting her arc and making it a lot cleaner. Her story would unfold alongside the Kenobi Vader one, weaving in and out as she fears the Chosen One and eventually seeks help from Kenobi. During this time, Ben would have his own antagonist. Here you have two perfectly well-rounded characters with an immense history spanning 4 movies and a 7-season TV show. If the current time was paired with flashbacks like the 5th episode did so wonderfully, Obi-Wan Kenobi as a show would have been packed with so much more raw emotion. Darth Vader is the perfect opponent for a broken Ben, a monster from his past that poses a physical and mental threat, a proper and emotionally rich character. He's the ideal flip side to the semi-retired Jedi. He has all the history with him, and he's the reason why Kenobi is in the state he is in. In this rework, it isn't Reva against Vader, but somehow also Kenobi, which, yeah, they barely explored it enough to make sense. It's Ben versus the Chosen One, the real reason why so many tuned into the show. As threatening as angry people can be in the moment, antagonists don't truly pack a lasting punch unless the conflict is deeply personal and interconnected for both parties. Vader has the unlimited power to truly strike Kenobi where it hurts, not just landing a blow, but using all that racked up history to do so. Exploring this in the current era with all that time since their last meeting, Vader is undoubtedly a villain worth Kenobi's time, one that challenges his mistakes and gives him a chance to overcome them, serving Ben's story just as much as his own. Suggesting a third thing the show could have benefited from more of, it would be John Williams' music, which speaks for itself. Even though the show is still decent as a whole, simply putting in recognizable character themes would help elevate Obi-Wan Kenobi to a whole new level, even without any on-screen changes. Check out the Vader-Kenobi duel rescore by Cinevore to see what I mean. It has that special spice that truly adds to the dish.
Nice.
Doing a deeper dive into the show, I made a detailed video exploring my ideas in chronological order, which you can find here when ready. Please leave a like if you made it this far, and subscribe to join the Star Council.
Goodbye.